So today marks President Biden's 100th day in office, believe it or not. So what's his next 100 days going to look like? Well, last night during his joint session of Congress address, he says America has turned the corner on the pandemic and is on the move again. Check it out.
Tonight, I come to talk about crisis and opportunity. Together we passed the American Rescue Plan, one of the most consequential rescue packages in American history. We're going to get rid of the loopholes, allow Americans to make more than $1 million a year and pay a lower tax rate. And the IRS is going to crack down on millionaires and billionaires who cheat on their taxes. Trickle-down economics has never worked. And it's time to grow the economy from the bottom and the middle out. Wall Street didn't build this country. The middle class built the country. And unions built the middle class. There is simply no reason why the blades for wind turbines can't be built in Pittsburgh instead of Beijing. No reason. None.
And joining us now is Marty Schenker, Bloomberg News editor-at-large. Marty, thanks so much for being here. So the president said his infrastructure proposal would be a jobs maker. Jobs, jobs, jobs. That was kind of the theme of last night, especially for those without college degrees. Those are people who largely supported former President Trump. So who does Biden's speech resonate with? Does it resonate with Republicans?
Well, it certainly resonates with his base of Democrats. What he's trying to do is reach across the aisle, not necessarily in the Capitol, but in the general population, and to capture some of those non-college educated GOP voters, Trump supporters, who think infrastructure is pretty much a good idea.
But does it matter if he captures those voters if they're not voting until 2022, if they're not the ones who are actually making the decisions over the next few months? Because Biden has to convince even moderate Democrats to get on board with these huge proposals.
There's no underestimating the trouble he's going to have trying to get this through Congress. But he only needs 50 votes in the Senate, with Kamala Harris being the tiebreaker. Some of the moderate Democrats need to be convinced, but there is a bargain to be had there. And I do think there will be some sort of infrastructure plan through Congress at some point.
So, Marty, what is the next 100 days for Biden pose? What is he going to be focused on? Is it really just going to be convincing the American public that this is the direction that the country should be going in?
Yeah, I think he's going to be getting out on the trail and trying to drum up political support to put pressure on lawmakers to vote for these things that poll generally pretty popularly. One poll shows, though, that the American public strongly wants bipartisan agreement in Congress on some of these things. If he can get it, I think that'll be a big triumph for him.
Does he get it? I mean, did last night's speech indicate to you at all that Republicans would be willing to work with him?
Well, the noise out of the Republicans is actually pretty subdued compared to, say, the last 4 years. They have their own internal political wrangling to do, and so their criticism of Biden has been surprisingly muted.
You know, this comment that we played some highlights just now, Marty, of last night's speech, and there's a lot that stuck out to me, but this comment about no reason that windmills should be made in China versus Pittsburgh. Is that necessarily true, given the makeup of the workforce here in the United States, given labor laws here in the United States, and given the ability of these two countries to compete? Is that a realistic thing to actually promise the American people?
Well, to be frank, there are reasons why these things are being made in China and not here. And there are a number of policies that would have to be changed in order to do it. It was actually fascinating to me that if those words would be spoken by his predecessor, people would be shaking their heads. And when they're spoken by Joe Biden, everybody's applauding.
Hey, Marty, we want to ask you about, I mean, we talk so much about partisan back and forth, but there was actually a moment of somewhat unity, I guess you could say, last night between President Biden and there you see it, Representative Liz Cheney, a lot of people talking about that. I wonder, for you who has covered sort of politics in Washington for so long, Is this a return? Is this a welcome sign that we're seeing these two actually sort of embrace in this way? And will it have any sort of sway on the rest of the party?
Well, going into his presidency, everybody realized one of Joe Biden's greatest strengths is his empathy and his humanity. And I think what you're seeing is really personal reaction to Joe Biden, the man, and it doesn't represent any fundamental political détente that's going to suddenly descend over the Capitol. Liz Cheney has been sharply critical of Donald Trump. She's been at odds with a number of people within her own party, and they have to sort out those issues before there can be any bipartisanship.
Yeah, I mean, she's a part of the old establishment, right? She's not
Yeah.
part of sort of the Gates wing. If you remember, just a few months ago, Matt Gaetz was traveling to Wyoming to campaign against her. So it is representative, I think, of this faction within the Republican Party right now, Marty.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, I do think it is possible we could see the traditional infrastructure part of the Biden recovery plan split off and voted separately. And you may, in fact, get Republicans to go along with that kind of bill, which would be a real triumph for Joe Biden.
Well, it remains to be seen. We're focused on the next 100 days. Bloomberg editor at large, Marty Schenker. Marty, always great to see you. Thanks for taking the time.